talking with Bill Reel about psychedelics and how they can enhance our spirituality and our healing was such an honor. Check it out. Link is in the show notes. Thanks.
That's why we start with a null hypothesis. We're going to say that this doesn't work. In the hopes, really, that the research shows that it does, but we're starting with that null hypothesis. This doesn't work. Let me demonstrate that that's true.
Well, and this whole thing really comes back to this B.I.T.E model worksheet, the Freedom of Mind worksheet, under the information control number 3 and number 5. So number 3 says compartmentalize information into outsider versus insider doctrines. And the church absolutely does that. If you're not for us, you're against us. And this is ensure that information is not freely accessible. And the way that the church does that is they lay on layers of shame and guilt and warn against reading things that are not supported by the church. And they do that in every level on the internet. Like I remember being told all the time, beware of the internet, when really what we need to do is say, this is how you check if the website you're on is accurate. Rather than saying, don't look, it's this is how you verify, follow the sources. Where is it coming from? You know, it's like, it's pretty well accepted that if I go to WebMD or the Mayo Clinic, I'm going to get accurate information. Right. However, WebMD and the Mayo Clinic, they cite all of the claims that they make. So if I want to, I can follow those citations back to their original source.
And even then, if you went to a doctor and said, this is what WebMD says, the doctor is going to go, okay, let's look at this again and just verify that that's actually the case.
Right.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It's not stay away from the internet. It's this is how you glean or understand what works, what is probably relevant, probably good source material, and what is not. But the problem with a cult is that's not going to stand up.
It's all or nothing.
They can't do that. They can't tell you, go to the internet. This is how you tell the difference, because the stuff that is on there that is actually accurate and sustainable doesn't tell the same narrative that they do.
Right. They're trying to keep you from the accurate information. Absolutely. I remember in college them saying, you know what? There's a lot of really amazing things on Wikipedia. Do not cite it in your research. Why? Not verifiable. You have to go to the original source.
Well, because anybody can put it there.
Right. And anybody can edit it as they see fit. Alrighty, here we go. So number 3, letter B, control information at different levels and missions within the group. And I find this really interesting because when, they use the word missions, and I'm going to think of going on a mission, the access to information is most limited for our missionaries who are for the first time in their life encountering people who are going to challenge what they are saying at a very different degree than what they had as youth in their own homes. And so we are limiting access to information when that information is most vital for those young men and women to be teaching truth.
Well, and teaching them to, in that situation, just walk away. They're not ready for this message. Not teaching them to listen, teaching them to walk away. Oh, you're so antagonistic. I can't be here anymore. Right. You're obviously not ready for my message.
Right. Well, and if a missionary knocked on our door and I was like, hey, I'm not a member of your church anymore because of the CES letter, you should really look that up. Unless I actually hand the missionaries a copy of the CES letter, they're not going to have the ability to look it up.
They might now, but absolutely in the past they would not have.
Most of their devices limit searches. Like they're like more restrictive.
And that's why I said they just might.
Right. They're more restrictive than what our kids have in high school as to what things they can and cannot access on them.
Well, and then it comes back to that last statement on this quote, doubt and dissent are thus interpreted as symptoms of personal deficiency.
Oh, you're talking about the Michael Lagone?
Yeah.
Lagone.
Yeah. Michael Lagone. That last part there is that if there's problems, if there's doubt and dissent, it's your problem. It shows that you have a deficiency,
Right.
not that the organization has a deficiency.
Right, and that's where we're blame shifting.
Yep.
The organization is 100% trustworthy. If you don't trust them, it's your own damn fault. How dare you? You're in Satan's power. Absolutely.
Yeah.
3, letter C, allow only leadership to decide who needs to know what and when. And that is like, when does the leadership tell us the truth about the history? I mean, for crying out loud, the prophet has access to the archives that the church has. We have stories that Joseph Fielding Smith knew that what they were teaching was a lie, and he purposefully hid it.
Yeah.
They know. They're not telling
You're only allowed
you.
to give faith-promoting stories.
Right,
You can't
there
give
is
truth.
There is a reason that very few people are allowed into the vault of original documents that the Mormon Church has, because if people were able to print it, what else are they hiding? It's a lot. That's
Right,
my
there's-
theory.
there's
I have no way
probably-
to prove that, but that's my theory.
Well, there's probably a couple reasons why you hide information like that, but always the number one is going to be there is something to hide.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and then we, move down to number 5, which is extensive use of cult-generated information and propaganda. So they say extensive use. I'm going to say almost all of the use of everything within Mormonism is cult propaganda. It's their shit. Like the videos that you watch, the little inspirational stories, the commercials, and every single one of those is written and directed to give you elevated emotion and pique your interest. Like, we know that we can do this with music. That's why there's the saying out there that music is what our feelings sound like. You can get that type of elevated emotion in lots of different ways. Like, movies do it to you all the time, but newsletters, magazines, journals, audio tapes, videotapes, YouTube, movies, other media, all of that is coming from Mormonism.
And you control the outcome. If you make it so that every positive experience strengthens your position, whether or not it actually does, and every negative experience strengthens the negative position, well, that happened because of you're not doing this or whatever. If every experience is like that and separated out in that black and white way, you've gained control of how even the emotional experiences are interpreted.
Absolutely. And then the last one here is misquoting statements or using them out of context from non-cult sources. And this has happened to us, Mason. You and I will say something on our podcast, like, your aunt did this to us. Aunt Africa did this to us by taking a little bit of the transcript, posting that on social media. She took it completely out of context to demonstrate, and then your family was like, well, thank you, this saves us from having to go in and listen to this bullshit, you're such a wonderful person. And I was like, yeah, way to only play a little teeny part of that makes what you're saying I said sound true. How about you play the 30 seconds before and the 30 seconds after? But of course, they're not going to do that. And we see this, it's happening. Like, one of the things I love about Mormonism Live and RFM is RFM's like, hey, you did this? Well, let's listen to what I actually said. Like, let me demonstrate how you're misquoting and how you're misrepresenting. But the other thing that's interesting is Mormonism does this with scripture. They will take a certain scripture completely out of context and create a whole lesson about it and change the meaning of the scripture. Talking with Bill Reel about psychedelics and how they can enhance our spirituality and our healing was such an honor. Check it out. Link is in the show notes. Thanks.